Hello and welcome back. That's right, today I want to talk about the brand new Asustor Flashstor series. Now, as the name suggests, we are talking about a new flash-based NAS system. Now, I keep using the word new there, don't I? But let's be honest with each other. Flash isn't new. Flash servers or servers that are predominantly geared towards solid state media in one form or another are not new. They've been around for a number of years, and although they are predominantly enterprise based, we are very slowly, and I really do mean slowly, starting to see more accessible and entry-level flash systems in the market. So, bearing all that in mind, why do I keep using the word new on this system when the concept of flash storage is by no means groundbreaking? Well, because the Flashstor series, I would argue, has got a few bells and whistles included in it that do set it apart from a number of other entries in the market, and arguably Asustor are approaching a new kind of way to present this. Now, when it comes to any kind of evolving technology, we do start to see things that, although as little as 2, maybe even 3 years ago would have been considered groundbreakingly, brilliantly, differently unique, suddenly after just a handful of years become pedestrian, become relatable, and ultimately become mainstream. But of all of the fields of data storage that I've ever talked about here on the channel, from media to the servers themselves, Flash has been weirdly both the slowest evolving subject and the fastest, and that is because of that storage media, SSD storage media inside there, and it always remaining to, presumably for most users outside of the general affordability remit, meaning that although the evolution of Flash and into Fabric, and a lot of that thanks to M2 NVMe, has been very fast and accelerating rapidly, it has always existed up here at the enterprise, and the amount of evolution of Flash here in the DIY, the enthusiast, your prosumer, your home or small business user, the amount of evolution here in the middle has been virtually non-existent, because all of the evolution has happened up here, and everyone else in the middle has been chucked the odd token M2 NVMe slot, chucked the odd SSD SATA based system along the way there, and that's why this Flashstor series is something of a change of pace. Now, the Flashstor 6-bay and the Flashstor 12-bay system, I believe they're going to be on the 12-bay that side and the 6 that side. We are using graphics there. These are respectively 6 and 12-bay M2 NVMe SSD systems. They're not rack mount, they are compact desktop forms. Indeed, in terms of their scale, they are 48mm by 308mm by 193mm. They are very small, with the M2 NVMe's all wrapped up side by side inside. Now, that small form factor, cooled by a single base level internal fan, this system is designed to allow users to create their own M2 NVMe fast access storage server on a desktop compact manner. However, in order to maintain an affordable price point there across the two devices, with the 6-bay arriving at the moment, according to Amazon, at $499, and the 12-bay arriving at $860, give or take, again, that's Amazon today at the start of May, there has obviously been elements of kind of, we're not going to use horrible words like bottleneck, but I think we do have to talk about elements of compromise to remain hardware-wise within that price point there, because when you hear flash server or any kind of flash-based storage server medium at all, you hear words like Xeon, you hear about 25 gig, 10 gig, 100 gig networking ports there. We are talking tens if not hundreds of gig of memory, because flash storage and getting the throughput potential of these M2 NVMe's that can crank out 1, 2, 3, 4, 6,000 megs depending on a generation, to hit that enormous bandwidth, you need the rest of the hardware architecture to be able to facilitate that bandwidth. And these two systems here are not designed to get that max throughput there. These are designed, again, at that little middle bracket there. What do I mean by that? Well, they both arrive with the same Intel CPU inside. It's an Intel Celeron processor. Very few people would associate a Celeron processor with flash storage. Again, stay within that little bubble there. This CPU, the M5105, a quad-core 2.0 GHz processor that can be burst up to 2.9, has, been around the current generation of NAS system in desktop form quite a lot. And again, Asustor themselves in the local source series, but along with the likes of QNAP as well, really making the most of this processor and what it can do on its Gen 3 architecture there. Both of them, the 6 and the 12 bay, both arrive with 4 gig of memory. Now, on the 6 bay, I sort of understand it. You're trying to keep it affordable. It's, got that roof of $499, which for a 6 bay flash system is incredibly impressive. But still, nonetheless, we are still talking about NVMe, and 4 gig within that price point is not ideal, but still all right for the price. And you can scale that up to 16 gig of DDR4. Whereas in the case of the 12 bay Pro system, that arriving with 4 gig of DDR4 is a little bit of a kick in the business department there, because one, your 12 slots, if you're fully populating that device with M2 NVMe's, 4 gig, it's not, you're already going to be hitting something of an overhead with 12 NVMe's to get the most of them read-writing simultaneously. So I'm kind of surprised it doesn't have 8 gig off the bat. Now, one, they might be doing that to keep within that price remit, but two, memory shortages are a thing at the moment. So it's understandable in some cases why they would have put 4 gig on there. It's not desirable, but it's understandable there. Now, alongside that, we've got to talk about the M2 NVMe bays themselves. Obviously, you don't have to fully populate these. You can run these on as little as one M2 NVMe if you want and start adding them later on. Asustor, as it stands, does not have a flexible RAID configuration like TerraMaster in their TNAS or Synology in their hybrid RAID. But I think a lot of users looking for performance kind of avoid flexible RAID systems that allow you to mix and match the drives. There is support, of course, for your RAID 0, your RAID 1, your RAID 5, your RAID 6, your RAID 10s on these systems. But once again, because of that CPU, it has introduced elements of, if not throttle, then certainly compromise, unfortunately, to remain within that price point. And one of them is to do with the number of lanes afforded to the rest of the hardware architecture on these systems. All of the M2 NVMe 2280 slots on both the 6 and the 12 bay, they are Gen 3 times 1 each. That means each one has effectively got 1000 megs or 1 gig of performance potential on each of them. Now, of course, once you RAID them together, you're going to be able to do more with that, but you're still working with that Celeron there, that quad-core 4-thread Celeron. But that does mean that M2 NVMe's like this one, this is a titanium TH3500 that can give you 3000 megs, is going to be throttled to 1000 megs. Now, there is the argument above and beyond to PCIe lanes that this system is going to want to stay cool, and they may have taken that decision not only because of the afforded lane to the system, but also because they just don't want 12 M2 NVMe's, even if they were at Gen 3 times 2, getting really, really hot within this relatively compact chassis there. But the overall result is that although thanks to RAID performance, internally you're going to get some great performance numbers as they're RAIDed together with simultaneous input-output, but externally, this is where we start to see another realistic expectation of these M2 NVMe's clustered together not being realized. What do I mean by that? Well, when you look at the external ports, the 6 bay system has got two 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports there, and the 12 bay system has got one 10 GBE port. There isn't an additional network port there, an extra one. There's a single 10G port there, and in both cases, you are going to end up getting your external throughput largely throttled across whether it's 6 or 12 of these M2 NVMe's there, which is a real shame. Now, there are ways and means. Obviously, you've got things like taking advantage of link aggregation, port trunking, and of course, more recently, SMB multi-channel being supported on these devices. And then you've got things like USB-supported network adapters that allow you to add, in the case of Asustor and their supported range of adapters, 2.5 gigabit Ethernet to USB adapters, allowing you to add a couple more of those 2.5G adapters to this. How much of that can be pulled and spread? Once again, multi-channel and lag is up for debate. But in the case of the 6 bay, you can have 6 M2 NVMe's with, at least out of the box, around 500 to about 550, maybe 580 megabytes per second external throughput there, when you know that one of those M2 NVMe's could absolutely oversaturate that connection. In the case of the 10, maybe you can go on the 12-bay system, you've got the 10G, maybe you can bolt on a couple of 2.5 gig adapters there and bring you up to about 15 gig on this system, which you're getting slightly better, but even then, 15 gigabit, it's not going to be great in terms of what those 12 M2 NVMe's could have potentially translated into external throughput. So, although remember, this is priced very, very reasonably for a flash system, bear in mind that the predominant benefits of those M2 NVMe's, such as they are going to be internal, not external, realistically there. It's a real shame they weren't able to maybe make an 8-bay system there across the M2s. Again, you've still got the same bandwidth afforded to you, but it's just a shame that you couldn't maybe leverage something into a couple of SFPs, perhaps. Maybe go one gen later on the Celeron processor. Of course, all of this is a material because it would have upped the price, but I just think there are going to be two kinds of users that look at this system, both in terms of incredible value for money, or will look at it as just these elements of compromise to remain within that value being something of an issue. I mean, in terms of the rest of the network connectivity on this system, I really like it. I mean, it's a shame that they're Gen 2 times Gen 2. USB 3.2 Gen 1 slots at 5 gigabits per second instead of 10 gig on this, particularly when even on their own advertising they talk about those USB ports supporting their expansion chassis. If you connect the expansion chassis, such as their 4-bay expansion, via USB 2, either one of these two devices, you're still going to be throttled to 5 gig because of those USB ports then. It's a shame that there isn't the means outside of a JBOD box to get a little bit more than that with maybe a Gen 2 port. In terms of video and audio output, there is not only an HDMI 2.0B port there, a better bandwidth utilized output than the rest of the HDMI 2.0, 2.0A that everyone else is using. But on top of that, you've got that SPDIF or SPDIF port there for audio output for those that are going to be running, high quality raw audio server, direct interfacing into your own local sound system from the NAS, which is going to be really, really good. There's a couple of USB 2 ports there. They're mainly for your KVM, your local combination with the HDMI output on this system. You've got Asustor's Portal application there as a parallel, so not duplicated, but parallel HDMI output there alongside ADM and that huge range of applications that they have for ADM, which is already currently supporting BTRFS with enhanced security measures as well. A very recent update on that has indeed tweaked a lot of those applications too. These are going to be the most affordable flash systems I've ever talked about on the channel. I'm not going to say that they are perfect flash systems. They're most certainly not to stay within this remit, but by far they are the most evolved flash servers that I've seen within that area of the storage tiers that I've seen. And for home users that aren't too bothered about external throughput, maybe their local network connectivity isn't really high spec anyway, that are going to be prioritizing power efficiency, good value and internal throughput that's managed by the system with as low a footprint as possible, financially, in terms of power use and ultimately power consumed. These two are going to be very, very appealing systems to system users out there. Just bear in mind, again, to work within that frame rate and that price point. Hopefully, we will be reviewing these in the next few months. I look forward to talking about them more. And we did talk about them a little bit more on the podcast recently. I will add, as I say on that, I'll say again, it's almost like they were designing a PlayStation 4. I've never seen anything look more like a PlayStation 4, other than a PlayStation 4, than these two here. But let me know what you guys think. Do you think there is a market for this product? Would you buy this product? Or are you someone that looks at this, goes, that's a cool idea, I wish it was a Pentium, I wish it was a Xeon, etc., etc. Let us know what you think in the comments. Apart from that, thank you so much for watching. Use the free advice section, use the free community support forum, use the free Discord server, use all of that free advice system we've got out there, and go to the links in the description to learn more about this and other Asustor NAS systems out there. But apart from that, I will see you next time.